On the forward face of the inside stem or apron here, it appears from the plans that the forward face here would be about 1/2 inch, so I've knocked off 1/4 inch from my ruler which marked the center, and I'm just going to mark that line either side of center. And I will repeat that process for the stern, making sure the measurements are the same. With the inside stem in place on the boat, I'm actually able to mark the top of the forms in a couple locations, and the center line, and then what the exterior profile of the inside stem is supposed to be. Now I'm just going to take my power planer, which is going to be the fastest way to knock this down. I'll get it close. We'll do the final tuning when it's on the boat and planking is offered up to the actual form. I will leave the bottom or top portion of the stem until we start to see how the planking is going to land on here, and the portion that blends in with the keelson is going to be easier to put when the keelson is on here and blend it all in with the forms. Got the keelson in place, I got my stem in place, roughly shaped out. It's a lot more trimming to go, but now I can glue in the keelson to the inside stem. We'll do that with some epoxy. I've made some reference lines on both ends to make sure we just kind of put it back in the same place. It doesn't have to slide all around. We will start by adding some epoxy to the mating surfaces. For a little bit of safety, I'm going to put packing tape down in here, because heaven forbid I glue the form to the stem. Days shaping the keelson and the stems to accept planking. It's not perfect. We're going to just kind of tidy it up as we go. But the next phase now is to make some patterns, or spiling in boat building terms, of the first, second, and third plank, or garboard first and a sheer gar or sheer straight. On this, it really only has the 3 planks per side, so I'm going to use a slightly different method that I used in the acorn build, whereby I used a bunch of hot glue tick sticks. This time I've made a slightly wider pattern because the planks are pretty wide, and I'm going to take a little note out of a book that we have, which I'll put a link to in the description, which then describes how we can use this pattern again and again 3 times to make the patterns. So I've made it in 3 pieces here, and there's going to be some joins in this area here, which are going to have a butt block or a piece of 1/2 inch or 3/4, what is it, 3/4, 5/8 ply on the back edge here with a bolt. So this can actually pivot a little bit and then we can clamp it down to where it needs to go and take the pattern from there. So let's get to doing that. I'm going to be clamping this up, drilling some holes through, putting a bolt and a wing nut through, and the backing block. I have my 2 sheets of 1/8 ply lined up with both edges so that it's basically straight. I have a piece of plywood underneath here, the 5/8 ply, and I'm just going to arbitrarily drill a hole somewhere through here, through all of it. I can place my carriage bolt up through. Maybe we'll get a washer on there. Crank it down so the head of the carriage bolt pulls into the plywood. See, and then I can loosen it off. Now what we need to do is actually pivot this pattern a little bit as we work our way around the curvature of the hull. Now I'm going to put another one at the other end. Make this about 17 feet long. I'm going to need that at least to do the shear plank on the 16.5 foot boat. You'll notice I'm putting the butt block on the dark side of the plywood here because I want to be able to draw on the light side. So this will be facing to the inside of the hull and with the wing nut on the outside for me to adjust and tighten. Then I'll be able to easily draw my markings on this side. Here's the process we're going to go through. I'm going to lay this main sheet across the center here, which lays pretty flat, and I want to kind of center between dead center of the keelson and the first landing of the plank, and I'm going to tack it down to the forms where it wants to just sit flat. We don't want to be twisting this board or edge setting it, like bending it around like this, sort of up and down. It should just naturally lay flat on the forms. So I think I'm in a good position with the main one here. But on this particular design, it's going to be pretty easy to get it to lay flat on the mid-sections of the forms. It's going to be one of the ends here where we have to start twisting it. With the midsection pattern put in place, I'm now able to kind of twist this piece as if it was a flat piece. I'm going to twist it up so it is centered between these 2 points here and there, and giving us some markings, at least enough that I can see where the landing point is. Bring it down a bit, whatever. So the thing is, now we're going to make sure that this would lay flat. And then mimicking the actual plank that's going to go onto here, which is, you know, the 1/4 inch ply, I can kind of just clamp it onto here, onto the stem, and see where it lands with a nice curve. It is landing nice and flush against the bevel on the stem. So I can tack this here. Maybe I'll add another one just up a little bit higher. I'm going to leave that clamp on there because I'm afraid if I take that clamp off, it may pull away. These tiny little finishing nails are susceptible. Now at the bow end, again, I'm going to twist this up so that it lays flat without any great force. Where does it want to sit naturally? If I twist this down and that in, so I'm driving some of these nails in on a bit of an angle, That prevents the thin door skin from being able to pull away. I want to see where my land is here. If I clamp this, come on, there, mimicking that. Landing very nicely against the stem. So I'm going to tack it there. Next, we can set on to actually taking a pattern. So I'm trying to find out the distance between a point on here and a point there where the plank lands and the center where the plank ends. So I can set my calipers here, which I have with a nice sharp pencil on there. I got it in there nice and tight. I don't want it moving on me. It would be really nice if I can set my calipers at the same distance for all of the forms. That may not be possible. If I do need to reset it, then I'm going to need to make a mark so I can put it back to that setting later on. So let's just have a look, see if I put this here and I draw an arc there, we're good. And if I put that there and draw an arc, we will be fine. So I think that's going to be the setting for most of the patterns. Here we go. So we're setting this pointer mark right on the center, dead center of the keelson, and drawing a nice big arc, as big as one can make. And then doing the same by landing it on the plank end, and again drawing a big arc. I'm going to leave my calipers set nice and tight. I don't want them moving. The other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this is exactly where the form is. I'm going to label this. This is, what is this, form number? This is plank, we'll call it P1, station number 4. So P1S4. We're going to do that for all of the stations. Before I carry on too much further, I'm definitely going to want to make a mark on here as to where I'm going to poke that in there really well, and I'm going to draw a circle on that so I know that if I lose my caliper measurement here, I can reset it back to the right distance. The stern end here, I can't actually transfer the center from the back there. I can mark, and we'll go right to the very end here, come on, to where shear line should be. So we're going to say this would be, let's call it stem, plank, whoops. Plank 1 stem shear. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw on the back here where the stem lands on the back of the pattern here, and then I will take a jig and transfer some of those marks to the forward side. Now it's not going to be a huge deal if this plank just extends over there anyways, as long as we find the shear or the plank land here for plank number 1, because the rest of just can be trimmed right off afterwards anyways. I've used my calipers several times. I'm just actually going to check to see that we are still back on the same distance, that I haven't banged or bumped this. I mean, you really want to have a good set of calipers that you can tighten down. I'm not a big fan of the ones that you know, you turn the knob here to bring them in closer and out, and they're spring loaded, they do move. And but you know, a good quality one like this, and nicely one that has a pencil attachment, is even better. So as I carry on, we're still in the right measurements for the pencil line. Nothing is moved on my calipers. So now it's time to transfer the marks from my pattern to a full-size pattern, and that is simply done by laying it down on the wide board. I've got some weights on there to hold it steady. I don't want it moving as I transfer the marks from the pattern to the larger pattern. So to transfer the pattern back, you just set your calipers, which should be reset at the same distance they originally were, on several points along the curve, drawing an arc opposite to it, and where those two arcs intersect, that's the point at which the original mark was. I will do that for all of the station areas. Then I just take some nails, hammer them into those points on a nice long board here, and run a batten and draw the line. And then I will just run a batten between those points, and I'm just using some clamps to hold it in place. And then just use my pencil to draw the line to create the nice arc. Of course, I'm making sure that the strip takes a nice fair line, checking it beforehand before drawing the curve. With the first pattern made for the garboard plank, which will then be mirrored imaged for the other side, I think we'll end the episode there. In the next episode we'll get into actually taking this pattern, scarfing together some marine plywood and cutting it out and installing these two first planks on the boat. So thank you very much for watching. See you next time.